Hello, everybody. We have 10 minutes here with Mr. Ryan Muckenhirn discussing NATO cartridges. If you haven't tuned into our last one where we talked about the 9x19 NATO, head back, one of these 10-minute talks. Now we are on to the 5.56. This one of 5.56 is like classic Lay's potato chips. They're everywhere. You see them all over the place. You kind of just forget that they're there, but it is. And I mean, they're everywhere.
You love them. You can't have just one.
Exactly.
It's become a name. It's a sticker. We see them on the backs of people's vehicles mocking folks who do a lot of running. Instead of it saying 26.2, it's 5.56.
Exactly.
Yeah, really popular round, and even older than its, I guess, even older than its creation. So, or I should say, its creation comes before its adoption and standardization.
Right.
It's a very neat round. I think in today's day and age, if you've heard of an AR-15, you've heard the term 5.56 stated. And again, backing up a little bit, if you didn't catch the earlier podcast or 10-minute talk, on the 9x19, NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, formed after World War II. If you've got some allies and you guys want the same ammo, if you have to fight a war in foreign lands, we all want to show up at the same time with the same stuff so that we don't end up in a situation like our boys did in World War II with the Brits having 303 and the Americans having 30-06.
That's a pretty big takeaway.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big one. So 5.56 or 5.56 by 45 millimeters. What do the numbers mean? 5.56 denotes the bullet diameter. It is, approximately 5.5 millimeters in diameter.
Which is basically like a 22 caliber, right?
It is. It is. And then the 45 denotes the length of the cartridge from the head to the case mouth, 45 millimeters long. And really, what NATO is doing is coming up with a standardization of dimensions so that whether we're hanging out with the guys in Austria and the Steyr AUG, or the Israelis and the IWI Tavor, or the Americans with the M16 or M4, they all fire the same round. We can cross train, we can become proficient with each other's arms, and when we're familiar with the ballistic curve and that kind of thing. And of course, there's just availability.
This thing got some flack when it first came out. People weren't really too crazy about it, were they? Because it was so small. They've been used to the 30-06 and the 308.
Yeah.
And then this came out, and everybody was kind of like, well, what is this for? Like shooting pop cans?
Yeah, that's cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk on that, and that might be a different kind of podcast to get into, but long and short of it was it an effective round for war fighting, and where were its shortcomings from? Was it the round itself? Was it the propellants used? Was it the arm that was used? And as much as the Flack for the cartridge and its effectiveness, there was just as much for the arm and its effectiveness.
Which was the M16. That was the first firearm that debuted with this cartridge.
Yes.
Both things were new.
Yep.
At the same time.
And there's a lot of hatred about that in that time of American history. And I don't know if we could really even pin it down to one thing. Is it the cartridge? Is it the propellant? Is it the arm? Is
magazines?
A lot of variables there.
Yeah. Thankfully, it's been worked out. And, I like to look at the successes of the American military and for all the other militaries that are using this round, NATO or otherwise. It's here. It's caught on. It's exceptional, for what it does. And the arms that have been developed around it have been very successful for the past 40 years. So it's a great round. Talking to the NATO loadings, there's quite a few in this one. So you go through the catalog and you're looking at different projectile styles, and they might do something different. So you could have the ball round, the M193, 55-grain ball at 3240, I believe is the nominal velocity for it. The SS-109, the M885, Mark II 62. There's a whole smattering of options available for
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, so different application, different things. Everything from non-expanding and armor piercing to tracer to expanding match to homogeneous design to a hollow point. So on and so forth. They call it an open tip, I guess, not a hollow point. But there's a ton of stuff available for it. A question I get a lot and used to get quite a bit before I worked at Vortex. I worked for an AR-15 manufacturer, and people would call and they'd say, hey, can I shoot 5.56 in my 2.23? Because aren't they the same? And on the exterior, yeah, if you were to like measure it all up, they're the same. If we cut them in half, if we cross-section, we start measuring some of the internal case dimensions, and namely just forward of the web and through the case walls, you're going to see a heavier case wall. The whole thing here is increasing chamber pressures, a little bit better performance and reliability under the duress of mud and dirt and sand and goo. And then on the back, the staking of primer pockets, which this one has a stake. So you could, or a crimp.
So I feel like it's a deja vu of what we discussed with the 9x19.
Correct. Yep.
How can I see?
Is that going to be consistent pretty much across the board?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
What part is the web, Ryan?
So the web is just forward of the extractor groove. So we have head, extractor groove, and then this portion is called the web.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. And so, and the stake, you said that this one does have it. How can you see it?
I should say crimped.
I'm sorry. Yeah, crimp.
So if you're looking at the case head where the writing is, and then all of a sudden you'll see kind of like a little depression, and then you have the primer pocket.
Oh, yeah.
Like a little depression around there. And then a lot of times given away by the sealant. So this one has an environmental sealant on the back of it. It looks like purple lacquer. And that is just what it is. It's a, look at it like nail polish put on there so that moisture can't get through that primer pocket and contaminate either the priming compound or the powder within.
Okay.
Almost all of those cartridges are going to have that on the back of it.
Yeah.
Because we don't know how often they're going to deploy, what their rate of consumption is going to be. We need to make a round that's going to be viable if it was loaded in 1996 and deployed in 2026, so on and so forth. Think of it like an MRE. Only this one goes bang. So really neat little cartridge, though.
So Ryan, the answer to that question though is
possibly. It depends on your chamber and how it was cut.
Okay.
And there's some strategic maneuvers within the chambering process, and on the throat angles that can allow that kind of thing to happen. Now, I've heard a lot of people say like, "Oh, modern metallurgy is fantastic." Expect that cartridge to feed and function just fine out of your firearm if it's stamped 223 Remington. I'd say consult the manufacturer of your arm. They'd be able to tell you for sure.
Wasn't like they're the 223 Wylde now, and that's supposed to be able to handle both?
Exactly correct. Okay. And that's that dimension up front, right where the bullet is entering the barrel, basically, upon the firing process, that's going to allow the 5.56 to be fired in there.
The 223 can get fired out of a 5.56
all day long. Yep.
No problem, because it's the smaller of the two?
Correct. Internal dimensions are different, yeah.
Okay.
So they're the same exterior dimension. Internal is where it's different.
Okay.
What I think is really interesting is like this is one of the most hand-loaded cartridges out there. Like people, and you buy remanufactured ammo, and you can buy, brass.
Yeah.
I've loaded what we'll call milsurp brass or NATO brass for years, and I've used regular 223 load data. I've never had an issue with it. Like technically, I should be reducing it to take into account those like increased wall thicknesses and web thicknesses that are going to spike my pressure. I've never had an issue. The brass is literally everywhere. If you go buy some remanufactured ammo, pull the box out, look at the head stamps. If they say like LC05, loaded by the Lake City Ammunition Plant, 2005, NATO spec case, you'll see where the primer crimp has been removed. And it's been set up for commercial use, but different than the NATO spec loading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the future of this little guy?
I hope it's going to stay a long time around.
Because everybody has AR-15s and all that stuff chambered in it.
Yeah. I think it's like, look at the 30-06. Okay, its debut, World War I. It's still around. It's still one of the greatest cartridges of all time. Now, it doesn't have military use anymore. We've gone on to technically smaller and better things instead of bigger and better things. But I think it'll hang around for a very long time because there's been millions of rifles chambered in it. There are tens of millions of rounds of ammunition presently loaded, and there's brass under every rock.
I mean, I just think about what a monumental change that would be. And so I was doing a little research on, you got 28 NATO countries that are, it's not just like the U.S. changing. Hey, we want to change it to this. I mean, you got a lot of hands involved there. Staggering how much effort and money and time that would take.
The NATO loading, or the NATO cartridge, because it is a different cartridge. It's different than a 223 Remington, was developed by FN in the 1970s.
What is it with them and little zippy cartridges?
FN is a huge player in arms development.
Yeah.
And we're talking everything from individual infantry rifles to automated systems.
Mm-hmm.
So they are the pioneers and the I guess the juggernauts when it comes to small arms, medium arms, large arms development.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
You know what I do wonder is you brought up the 30-06. The
Yeah.
fact that it's still around. When the 30-06 was in military use, there wasn't another 30-06, like a metric version of it, though, was there?
Not in
like-
a NATO standard.
Because like
No.
here we have 5.56 and there's also 2.23. Both, I mean, you talk about the 2.23, again, millions of firearms
Yeah.
and cartridges already loaded up for the 2.23, hunting stuff.
Yep.
So now those are coexisting instead of there just kind of being one, like the 30-06 there was,
Right.
you know. So which one, you wonder, are they both going to continue to coexist at the same popularity over time, or will one
would
prevail if ever it doesn't become a NATO thing anymore? The 5.56 will both kind of
Just by the numbers, you'd think that.
Oh, it'd have to.
Yeah. That's a great question, though. And I do wonder, what is the landscape going to look like in 30 years?
Let's hear your guys' thoughts.
Lasers.
Let's hear you guys' thoughts on what the future of this little guy is. But otherwise, stay tuned for the next NATO special here with Mr. Ryan. We will catch you guys then. See you later.
See ya.